LA Trails.
Welcome to episode 4 of my 2023 training diaries. We spent 4 nights in Los Angeles, California over the May long weekend. We were there for the wedding of our good friends Hillary and Billy, but Audrey had never been to LA, so we stayed for a couple of extra days to tour around the city and to do a little bit of trail running on the edge of town. And as I mentioned in the last episode, I've finally started following a formal training plan again. So I'll tell you all about how that's been going, and I'll show you some footage from the trails in LA. I'll also run you through some of the gear that I've been using this season from Salomon, because I've been getting a lot of questions about packs and shoes. There was a bit of a mix-up with the rental car that we booked last weekend, so they ended up giving us a Mustang convertible, which ended up being the most LA-appropriate vehicle ever. What do you think of the car?
This thing's ridiculous.
So it's Friday, mid-morning here in Los Angeles, and it's quite foggy this week. We're up here at the observatory, and we're not able to see much. So we're going to continue on our way here. We've got about a 12-kilometer route today, up past the Hollywood sign, along some of the trails here in Griffith Park. Watch out for snakes. That first run that we did in Griffith Park definitely made me envious of just how runnable and well graded some of those trails are down there. It would be the perfect place for a hill workout. But as you could probably tell, the visibility was quite poor. That's what we're supposed to see. Not today. Southern California has been experiencing a lot of fog, and the skies were gray pretty much the entire time we were there. It was actually a nice relief, though, from the heat wave that we had left back home in Vancouver. But it did unfortunately rob us of what is normally an incredible view from the observatory in Griffith Park. That evening, we met up for dinner with our friends John and Heather, who had just arrived from Vancouver. The next morning, we got up super early to head out to the trails near Santa Monica for a pre-wedding group run.
So many of you guys came from so far away, and it just absolutely warms our hearts. We feel the love, and that's what we want this weekend to be about community and love. And it's not about us, it's about the people we have in our lives.
Leave it to Hillary and Billy to prioritize organizing something like this for on their wedding day.
Just gonna tuck in behind Courtney and hang on for dear life.
It was a great chance to reconnect with some old friends, like Jeff, who you might remember from my film about UTMB, and to meet some new ones.
We are at Parker Mesa Overlook, looking over the beautiful Pacific Ocean. There's tons of views. No, this is one of my favorite places to show off for people coming to town, like my friend Jeff over here from Canada. This is also the place where Hillary and I went on our first LA trail run together when I swept her off her feet from Colorado and we road tripped over here. So here we are. Very special moment. Very special to have all these beautiful people from out of town here with us to help celebrate this, not just today, not just tonight, but this entire weekend. So that's what it's all about. Yeah, I definitely punched up with Hillary, so I'm so stoked.
This view is phenomenal. And you're out here for a while in California. You're originally from California?
Yeah, originally from SoCal. I'm going to spend about a week and a half, 2 weeks out here. Reacquaint with some friends, run some trails, get in the big mountains. We don't have those in South Carolina anymore.
It's like natural glitter.
It's
Very festive.
Should I keep it for the wedding?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You got to even yourself
They
out a
said they
little
needed
bit.
a flower girl, so.
There you go.
Nothing else to do today but lay here and eat.
Here we go.
I want to see Jeff.
That evening was, of course, the wedding, which was a super fun party. And it was a who's who of professional ultra running. Congratulations to Hillary and Billy, and we're so grateful to have been part of your special weekend. We then had 2 more days to check out the city, so we hopped in the convertible and did pretty much all the touristy stuff that we could do. We'd end up checking out Venice Beach, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Redondo, Huntington, and the Santa Monica Pier. LA has a real car culture, and visiting the city requires a lot of driving and spending an equal amount of time searching for parking. There's no rapid bus transit in LA, and buses have to contend with traffic on its smaller streets, just like all the cars. Close to 80% of the city is zoned exclusively for single-family homes, which has led to massive urban sprawl and a major lack of affordable housing. In fact, it has the fewest number of homes per adult of any major US city, making it one of the most overcrowded and rent-burdened places in the country.
Charlie, hi, yeah.
We ended up taking that Sunday and Monday when we traveled home off completely from running. But we did do a good 10 to 15 kilometers each day of walking as active recovery. Last week was all about recovery, and I could tell on those 2 runs that we did in LA that my legs still weren't fully recovered from the race that I had done the weekend prior, the Wild Horse Traverse 50K. But after getting home Monday night, I joined our usual Tuesday trail group for a 90-minute easy run on the trails, which felt great, so I knew that I was ready to jump back into my training. Wednesday, I then had my first workout of this training block, a tempo run on relatively flat trails. After starting with a 20-minute warm-up, I first did sets of 30 seconds at a hard effort, so RPE 10, along with 30 seconds of easy running, so around 4 RPE, which I repeated 5 times, so 5 minutes in total, before starting my tempo intervals, the real workout. For those, I ran 8 minutes at about 7 RPE, followed by 5 minutes easy, which I repeated 3 times, followed by a cool down. And I'll link below to an episode from last season where I talk about the RPE scale. The reason for those 30-second intervals at the start is basically to build up a bit of lactate before starting the tempo intervals, which helps to train your body to better use and clear that lactic acid. David and Megan Roche talked about this on a recent episode of the Swap podcast as well, who you've probably heard me mention a few times, so definitely check out that podcast if you haven't already. Thursday, I had what my coach Eric called an easy vert day, which meant climbing Grouse Mountain here on Vancouver's North Shore, but then taking the gondola back down. And today on Friday was just an easy 30 minutes of cross training on the bike. This weekend, I'll be doing back-to-back long runs, starting with a 4-hour run on Saturday, followed by a vert long run on Sunday. For that, I'll be doing 3 laps up Grouse Mountain, taking the gondola back down for the first 2, and then running down for the 3rd. And the reason for that is to focus mostly on building strength on the climbs, but not to overload my legs with too much descent this early in this training block. But I've now got just under 5 weeks until the Bob Graham round, so the next few weeks really have to count. Now, in terms of gear, I've been spending a lot of time running in the Salomon S-Lab Ultra 3s this season. These have been around for a few years, and the 3s are just a carryover from last year. They've just updated the branding for 2023. But somehow it took me until this year to get my hands on a pair and to really put them to the test. And I'm enjoying how much cushioning they have while still being quite snappy and firm, because I can't stand a sloppy feeling or overly cushioned shoe. Now, they're still fairly narrow, being an S-Lab model, which is unisex, but I actually find them to be just slightly roomier in the toe box than most S-Lab shoes, which I think will be great for longer distances. So I'm considering using them for the Pyrenees stage run and potentially the Moab 240 later in the year as well. For my easier runs on less technical terrain, I've been using the Salomon Pulsar Trail Pro 2, including on those runs that I did in LA. This has been updated this year, and I've noticed that the fit is much better, particularly in the heel. You might remember from my review of the original Pulsar Trail Pro that I found my heel lifted out a bit on the climbs. So if you had similar problems with the first version, then it might be worth giving them another try. But I'm still doing a lot of my runs in the S-Lab Pulsar Soft Grounds, which is what I used for the Wild Horse Traverse 50K. That's definitely still my favorite shoe, especially for faster running and on more technical terrain. I've also been experimenting with a few different belts from Salomon. I started using the Pulse belt last year to carry my camera gear. I put my phone in the front in the zippered pocket and my GoPro in the back where it's more accessible, which keeps them separate from everything else that I carry in my pack and helps to distribute the weight. The two Sense Pro and Advanced Skin models work as well if I want to carry a little more, but I just like the simplicity of the Pulse belt. Now, they all have loops for carrying your poles, which I'd recommend everyone at least consider as an option, even along with a pack, to help keep them on your hips, but especially as an alternative to a pack for really hot or humid races, maybe along with a handheld. And I'll be wearing a belt along with my pack for most of my events and adventures throughout this season, again, mostly just to help distribute the weight. And the pack that I've been using the most is the Salomon Advanced Skin 5 liter. The 12 liter though is what I always recommend if you can only afford one pack, because it's going to be the most versatile, covering you for full day runs in the backcountry up to 100-mile plus races with a lot of mandatory gear. But you can still use it while almost empty for short runs, and it fits basically the same as the 5 liter. But I like to rotate my packs so that I can wash them more frequently, which helps to make them last longer. And the 5 liter does fit a little bit better with less stuff in it, and likely it breathes a little bit better as well, since there's just less material. Now, Salomon does make other packs like their Sense line, which are lighter and much more breathable, so likely designed more for racing. But I've always found that they're just a little bit too stretchy, which can cause the flasks to bounce quite a bit when you're running really hard, and they've just never quite fit me as well. We launched registration for our trip to Iceland last week for summer of 2024, and there's just a couple of spots left at early bird pricing, so that's filling up quickly. And I'll include a link below in case you want to learn more about that. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly on Instagram if you have any questions at all. I leave for England next weekend, so in episode 5, I'll be coming to you from the Lake District with a look at my first week of training in the Fells. And I can't wait to get a look at the terrain over there, so stay tuned for that, and I will talk to you all in a couple of weeks.